What is up, guys, and welcome back to another video. Today we are going to be talking about the new F1 2020 driver ratings. Recently F1 have brought out their own version of, I suppose, FIFA Ultimate Team, where they have all the different drivers in a sort of card style. They've given them an overall rank with a few stats of experience, racecraft, awareness and pace, and that has given them a total overall. But there's a few people discussing that a few drivers shouldn't have been given what they have been given. So today, we're going to be fixing that. Before we get into the video, don't forget to like the video if you enjoy it, and subscribe to the channel if you want to see more F1 content. Before we get too into the actual ratings of the drivers, I want to talk about what they're based on. And I think F1 have gone for basing the drivers' overall rating on not only last season's results, but then also basing them on previous seasons. So, for example, Kimi Räikkönen is up at 87 rated. Unfortunately, as a driver, the older you get, the further away from your peak you get. So I don't feel like he is 87 rated, but we'll get to that later on. Whereas in FIFA, they base them on last season's results and then add just a little bit of previous seasons for especially the bigger players. But you will always see the likes of Ronaldo and Messi. They'll be at 93, 94 for every single season. But we will see a time when they start to drop off from their own performance, that they are going to start to drop down into like the 89 levels and further as their careers go on, depending on how longer their careers go on for. So that's what I've sort of gone for today. I've not based them on their whole entire career. I've just based them on how they did last season, and then added a little bit of previous results and a little bit of longevity to them as well. So nevertheless, let's get into the first team. First team up, we're going to start straight from the top with Mercedes. And I think these ones are sort of on the money. I mean, well, one of them is, one of them isn't. Lewis Hamilton, 94 rated, cream of the crop. And I'm quite happy to keep him there. I'm quite happy to keep Lewis Hamilton at 94 rated. Then we move on to Valtteri Bottas. And there's some controversial stats in here. I mean, 99 awareness, I'm not too sure where that's come from. Maybe he's really aware that Lewis Hamilton is coming past so that he can let him through. So I'm a bit unsure where that one has come from. 90 rated as well. Again, I'm a bit unsure. I've done it based on last season's results. So of course he did get P2. So you would think, okay, maybe he's going to be the second best rated. But you also have to take car performance into it as well, and base them off how well their teammate did. And Bottas was nearly 100 points behind what Lewis Hamilton scored. So for that reason alone, I put him down than the 90 marker. I've actually rated him down at 87. I just don't feel like last season he really performed. At the start of the season, he'd done so well. But then as the season went on, it just dropped off further and further. So 87, I think for him, is a fair reflection of what he did last season. I don't think he's going to agree with that. He's going to be like, no, I should be 90 or higher. But for me, last season's results, I think 87 is probably the best that we can put him on. Now we move on to the Scuderia Ferraris. And this one, I was a bit surprised at, in all fairness. I saw that there was a few cards that were released before these ones. They released them 3 a day. So I was quite surprised that Leclerc was down on 86 rated. And Sebastian Vettel was 89. Now, I've gone and bumped Leclerc up. Leclerc had a fantastic first season at Ferrari. I know he is still quite a young driver, and he did make a fair few mistakes, and there is a reason why he is not the second best rated driver in this list, but I definitely had to bump him up. And I put him at 90 rated. I saw that Max Verstappen was 90 rated earlier on in the week. And if anything, Charles Leclerc should be on that level. He had a great season. You could compare the two between each other. The only thing that I thought dropped Leclerc down a little bit was he did make quite a few mistakes in key races, like Monaco, like Baku, just to name a few off the top of my head. So for Charles Leclerc, that's why I think I capped him at 90, but he definitely should be 90 at least. You know, he should not be down at 86 level. So that's why I have bumped up Leclerc to 90. Sebastian Vettel, on the other hand, though, he was beaten by his younger teammate, a sort of rookie coming into the Ferrari, only in his second season. So for Sebastian Vettel, he didn't really have a great season. He wasn't too many points behind Leclerc, but he wasn't really the lead man for Ferrari, and he had a few mistakes as well. So I kept Sebastian Vettel actually on at the same level. I didn't feel like dropping him down too much. I don't think he needs to be dropped down because he is still a top quality driver. But yeah, I think 89 is a good level for Sebastian Vettel. I don't feel like he needs to be higher or lower. So I'm going to keep Sebastian Vettel on 89, mainly for the fact that he was beaten by his teammate. He was quite a bit lower. Well, to be fair, he was only just down from Leclerc in the standings. So yeah, Sebastian Vettel 89, and we're going to stick him there. Now moving on to the Red Bull boys. Now Max Verstappen, he is rated at 90 on this. So I was not too surprised by that. He is a top quality driver. But then I saw that, I thought Charles Leclerc should be a little bit better. So I rated Leclerc at 90. But then I thought Max Verstappen did have a great season in that Red Bull. He beat both Ferraris, in which that Red Bull is not better than the Ferraris. And also did get 3 wins under his belt as well. And he did push Hamilton in quite a few races too. So for that reason, I bumped Verstappen actually up 1. I put him onto 91 rated. I feel that's a fair reflection of where he should be. He does have the potential later on in his career to go on and push Hamilton's rating and maybe go up to 94 at some stage in his career. But for this season, based on last year, I'm going to stick him at 91. Alexander Albon is up next. Now, he's fairly new into F1. It was his first season. He had a good season for Toro, so I wouldn't say he was the best driver out of the two. I feel like Danny Kvyat did perform better and also more consistently than Alexander Albon. But, nevertheless, Albon got the seat. But, moving into that Red Bull, he didn't perform as well as his teammate. He did still sort of feel that Gasly effect that they are clearly favouring Max Verstappen, so it is quite hard to sort of give a true reflection of where he should be. But I feel like based on a first season, he had a solid first season. He's fairly in the average range for now. We'll see where he goes on in the next season with Red Bull, whether he can push that on and get podiums and stuff like that. But for this one alone, I kept it at the 79 rating. I thought they gave him a good rating. It's a fairly average one. With the potential to go on further from that. So I agree with F1 on this one. 79 is probably a good rating for Alexander Albon. Now we move on to the cards that were actually released today. We move on to McLaren. So Carlos Sainz and Lando Norris. Carlos Sainz, I think, was bang on the money. 82 rated, I think, was a pretty good reflection of how good he is based on last season's results. He got quite a few solid results for McLaren. Lots of P5s he picked up on where other teams made mistakes and sort of solidified McLaren's position as best of the rest. And he also got that podium, of course, in Brazil. So I think 82 is a good rating, maybe potential of an 83, but I thought I'd keep him at the 82 level. It's up to you guys, obviously, in the comments below, whether you think you agree with that. Lando Norris, on the other hand, they gave him 79 rating, but I thought based on his teammates' results, I don't think that that is really where he is at the moment. I still think he's around that sort of average 80, 79, 78 level at the moment, but I feel like he's not quite at 79. I thought I'd drop him down 1 ranking down to 78. This is mainly down to the reason that his results were quite a bit off of Carlos Sainz's. Carlos Sainz was pushing for top 5 results. I know he has more experience. This was Lando's first year, so I'm not saying that Lando is a bad driver. I feel like going into next season, he can push on that, take it a step further, and really show his potential in that McLaren. But for now, I feel like he's not quite at 79 rated. I had to drop him down in my own personal opinion. So that is why I put Norris down at 78. Okay, now we move on to the Renaults. We've got Daniel Ricciardo and we've got Esteban Ocon. These are 2 drivers that I thought were a little bit overrated in the stats. For Daniel Ricciardo was set on 87, which I can understand why. They've done their results based on their career as a whole, and Ricciardo's career at Red Bull is definitely going to push him up. But based on last season in that Renault, he did really struggle to get to grips with it. I know the Renault wasn't as good as it was in 2018, so I know that there was a clear difference there, but nevertheless he did struggle. He did make quite a few mistakes, so I feel like 87 is a little bit of a push for Daniel Ricciardo. I have dropped him down actually quite a bit, in all fairness. I put him down to 84 ratings, so 3 whole ratings off of his, dropping down the same amount as I dropped down Valtteri Bottas, which is quite a big step. But in my opinion, Ricciardo didn't have a great season last season. Hopefully for him, he can push on again in 2020, like Lando Norris, to really solidify himself in that Renault and prove to him that he can perform in a midfield team before he then moves on to McLaren as well. So for me, Daniel Ricciardo, based on last season, I'm going to rate him as 84. Esteban Ocon now, another driver that I feel in total is quite overrated. Now, I feel like a lot of you are going to shout at me at this point because I know there are a lot of Ocon fans, but I do feel like he's very overrated. If he was as good as people say he was, then surely he would have had a seat last season. Mercedes would have put him instead of Valtteri Bottas if they really felt like he was as good as Valtteri Bottas is, which he just isn't. So that's why I put Ocon down to 79. Obviously, he's going to have a season up against a quality driver like Daniel Ricciardo. If he outperforms him, then I will totally, take back my words and give Ocon all the praise that he deserves. But for me, I'm just going to put him down a step into that 79 rating, as I feel like he's not quite at that 80 stage. He's not quite pushing in the boundaries, but I feel like 79 is a good sort of true reflection for a sort of, I don't want to say average driver, because that's not what they are, but they are still quite young and they have got the potential ahead of them to really build on their careers. Right, AlphaTauri time. And to be honest, I'm going to be fairly quick with this one. Gasly's been rated at 80 and so has Danny Kvyat. I think they were spot on with both Kvyat and Gasly. Both of them, I reckon, were 80 rated. Good seasons last year. Kvyat and Gasly both getting onto the podium, so both making it count in races where other teams and drivers made mistakes. Germany in the wets, for example, and then of course Brazil, which was absolute carnage at the end of the season. So both Gasly and Kvyat pouncing on other drivers' mistakes, getting onto the podiums, and yeah, I think that's a true reflection of where they're at, 80 rated. Gasly didn't have a solid season at the end, so he would have been like down in 75 if we just rated him on last start of the season. But then once he went into Toro Rosso, he really came back to the Gasly that we all knew. So that's the reason why that sort of bumped him back up into 80, as he really outperformed Kvyat. But Kvyat was a very consistent across the whole season. A good performance from Kvyat, so I think both of them should stay at 80 rated. Okay then, racing point time. We've got Sergio Perez rated at 85 and Lance Stroll at 78. And again, this is going to be a fairly quick one. I think that is a solid result for both of them. If you're hiring Sergio Perez, you know that you're going to get a solid midfield performer. That Racing Point last season was a terrible car, and he managed to get so many points out of it, so many good results out of it. So 85 rated for Sergio Perez, I think, is a really good reflection for where he is at. Solid driver, solid performer, and you know what you are getting. Lance Stroll, good driver. If it was based on career, I would probably bump him up compared to that 78, as he's had a few good performances in the Williams at the start of his career. But last season, he did really struggle. Qualifying let him down so much. I think he struggled to get out of Q1 in so many races. And that really affected his actual race performance, because he started down lower. He managed to make up the positions, but unfortunately not enough to get into the points, only enough to get into like P11 or P12, so just missing out on the points. So for that reason, I've sort of kept Lance Stroll the same. He is a sort of average performer at the moment, a good average performer, but I don't see him quite as good as the like of Albon's season or Gasly or Kvyat. So for that reason alone, I've sort of kept him at that 78 mark. And I know a lot of people don't really like Lance Stroll and probably saying, oh, he should be 73 rated or something like that. But in all honesty, I think 78 is a good reflection for Lance Stroll. Right, okay, Alfa Romeo. We've got Kimi Raikkonen, we've got Giovinazzi. Two people that I think weren't rated properly. I think these two need fixing, definitely. Kimi Raikkonen's 87 rated. And if we go back through his career, then I understand it. I understand why he is an 87 rated driver. But if we're basing this just on last season, he did get some incredible results out of that car. That car was awful, and he managed to keep it consistently in the points. So there is no denying that he is an incredible top performer. However, he is not at the peak of his career. He's definitely dropping down at the moment in terms of rating, if you're going to rate him overall. So they put him at 87. I've knocked him down too. I put him down to 85. Same as Sergio Perez. You know you're going to get a solid performer out of this driver. And he scored 10 less points than Sergio Perez in a car that I would say is about that sort of level in difference between them two. So I think they were both solid performers for their own teams, and they both deserve to be on that 85 level. I think 87 is mainly just because those extra two ratings have been put on because of his previous seasons and his career in like McLaren, you know, in 2003 and those sort of days. But in my opinion, I think he needs to be dropped down to 87, but he is still a very solid performer. Giovinazzi, I feel like, was done dirty, 73 rated. I don't think he's that bad. He was definitely way off the pace of Kimi Raikkonen, especially at the start of the season, but he did start to get better as the season went on, getting P5, of course, in the Brazilian Grand Prix, so really gaining it again like Gasly and like Raikkonen did in that race, and also Carlos Sainz. on other drivers making mistakes and stuff like that. So I put him as 75. I put Giovinazzi. I gave him 2 more ratings. He hasn't quite proved to me that he is a top performer in F1, but it was only his first season, which is surprising to say. This off-season has been so long that it's still mad that that was his first season, his first full season in Formula 1. So for me, 75 rating, I think is a good reflection for Giovinazzi, and hopefully he has the potential to prove me wrong and push on and prove everyone wrong and get some good results in 2020. Okay, Haas time. I think when it comes to Haas, we've got Magnussen at 78, and we've also got Grosjean at 80. I feel like they've got them flipped around. I think they've got them the wrong way round. If we look at last season's results, Magnussen outperformed Grosjean. Grosjean got like 8 points. Magnussen, I think, got 20. So I feel like those two are flipped in that result. I can see why Grosjean is above him, because they've taken in 2012 and 2013 seasons into account. So that is why they've sort of given Romain Grosjean that 80 rating. But Magnussen, for me, I put him up to 79. I've jumped him up 1. I put him on the same sort of level as Alexander Albon. That Haas was awful last season, so it was very difficult to get points finishes out of that car. But nevertheless, Magnussen did a whole lot better job than what Grosjean did. And for that reason, I dropped Grosjean down to 77. A few people, I reckon, are probably saying he should be lower because he's terrible. I don't agree with that. I don't think Grosjean is a terrible driver, but I do think that he did have a very poor 2019 season. So that's why Grosjean's gone down, Magnussen's gone up, and I've sort of flipped the two around. And finally, we move on to Williams. And I think both of these drivers were done dirty here. Russell is a top quality driver. You put him in a top team, he will perform. As soon as he gets into that Mercedes, he's going to be on it. He's going to be getting race wins, and he's going to be pushing for championships as well, in my opinion. So for that reason, I bumped him up to 80. If we're looking on, he came into F1 with the likes of Lando Norris and Alexander Albon. He beat both of those drivers in F2. Now, we're not necessarily taking those results into account, but in the car that he was, Williams that got 1 point out the whole season, and it came at a race where half the field crashed out or got penalties. So that is the reason why the likes of Williams only scored 1 point last season. So it was a dog car. It was absolutely horrendous. So for Russell to get 75 rated, I don't think is a true reflection of where he should be. So that is why I've bumped him up to 80. I think he's a top quality performer, and he deserves to be 80 rated. Latifi as well. I don't know what they were thinking to put Latifi down at 64. He must have seen that and just think, why should I even bother with F1 this season if people are already saying I'm 64 rated? Very harsh. I don't think he's up there in the sort of good average, because a lot of these performers have had a season in F1. They've proved themselves to be able to get points and, you know, be able to drive at a good level. So Latifi, I put him up to 73. He still has a lot to prove in Formula 1 because he hasn't even started yet. But I don't think he's going to be that far off the pace of Russell. Russell's a top quality driver, so it's going to be hard to compare the two, because Latifi, I don't think is going to be on that level of Russell. But in a few seasons, when Russell moves on, Latifi hopefully stays. He can maybe prove himself against one of these other drivers who are like 79, 80 rated in my list. So that is all of the 20 Formula 1 drivers' ratings fixed. Do you agree with what I have said? If you haven't, don't forget to leave a comment down below. Or even if you have, let me know what you think about all the drivers. Don't forget to leave a like on the video if you have enjoyed it. And also subscribe for more of this Formula 1 content. But until the next time, goodbye.